They say the earth down here still remembers how men died. I never used to believe that kind of talk. Ghost stories for drunk miners, echoes trapped in stone. But after 12 years crawling through tunnels from Kandahar to Kentucky, I've learned rock doesn't forget. It holds things. Pressure, heat, streams. Blackridge, Pennsylvania, is one of those towns that only looks alive from a distance. Once you're in it, you realize it's just steam, rust, and memories of the coal that used to keep people warm. I rent a single-wide container on the South Ridge, the kind they stack 3 high for storage, and call it home. The company calls it temporary housing. I call it a tin coffin with Wi-Fi. Sarge doesn't seem to mind. He's half blind in one eye, missing part of his left ear, but he still growls at anything that smells off. Lately, that's been a lot of things. Ever since Citron Ventures reopened the Red Widow No. 3 site, the air's been different. Metallic, dry, like standing next to an unplugged refrigerator. The company swears it's harmless. Pop Delgado, our lead tech and the only man who actually survived the 1987 blast, calls it the breath of the pit. He says it like a joke, but I can see the fear in his eyes when the wind comes up from Shaft 7B. Tonight's my double shift. Third one this week. They got a heat anomaly down in the new borehole, 312 degrees Celsius at 2,000 feet, and the sensors keep tripping. Pop's supposed to go down first thing in the morning, but management wants eyes on it sooner. So they call me. Cheaper than overtime. I sign out my toolkit and a portable scanner, toss a protein bar and Sarge's photo into my pocket. The night guard at the gate barely looks up from his tablet when I badge through. Out past the floodlights, the land sinks into the old valley, a black scar lined with scaffolds and warning tape. The Red Widow pit yawns below, fenced with razor wire and biohazard, level 4 signs that no one takes seriously anymore. Citron says the signs are for legal reasons. Pop says they're to keep something from getting out. Either way, I've got bills to pay. The elevator cage rattles as it drops. 1,000 feet. 1,100. 1,200. My ears pop. The metal hums. Then silence. That thick underground quiet that feels like being swallowed whole. I flick on my headlamp. The tunnel glows white in the beam. Smooth basalt, shotcrete walls, coolant lines snaking along the ceiling like veins. The scanner pings a low thermal pulse, steady, but the deeper I go, the louder the background noise gets. Not static, not wind, breathing, slow, deep, like the earth is asleep and dreaming bad. Probably the vents. I whisper, though no one's there to hear me. The comm radio crackles with Pop's voice from topside. Rook copy. You in 7B yet. Just hit marker 12. Good. Don't go past the old drift. They sealed it after the blast. I know the map. Then, it don't mean shit down here. Tunnel shift. He kills the line. That's Pop, half mentor, half ghost. At marker 14, I find the anomaly sensor jammed against the wall. The metal casing's warped like it's been half melted. I pull out the scanner. The thermal image blooms crimson, temperature spiking at 309 degrees Celsius, right through solid rock. No heat source should read like that. Behind the sensor, the wall looks wrong. The rock's darker polished, as if something burned it smooth. I tap it with my wrench. The clang echoes hollow. Then another sound answers back. 3 slow knocks. From the other side, I freeze. My lamp flickers. Sarge isn't here, but I hear his low growl in memory. My mouth's dry as chalk. Pop. I whisper into the comm, no reply. Just a long exhale of static. Then the air changes. That metallic tang thickens, iron and ozone, and I taste copper on my tongue. My skin prickles like static before a storm. I should go. Log the reading, climb out, file the report. Instead, I press my palm to the wall. It's warm, and beneath the warmth, a pulse. Faint but steady, like a heartbeat. I don't remember deciding to dig. 1 minute I'm standing there. The next, I've got the crowbar wedged into a fracture seam. The stone flakes like glass. A crack splits down the center, wide enough to breathe out a gust of air so hot it burns the hairs on my wrist. And with that breath comes a sound, a whisper buried under the hiss. Feed the core. I stumble back, drop the tool. The light flares red for half a second, painting the tunnel like hell's throat. Then it's gone. Only the smell remains, rot and sulfur and something sweet, like spoiled honey. The scanner beeps wildly. Temp climbing, radiation spike, then dies. I back away fast, nearly trip over the rail ties. The wall closes behind me, the cracked ceiling like wax melting shut. Blink hard. It's solid again, perfectly smooth. Rook to base, I whisper. I've got a something down here. Need pop now. Static. Pop, you copy? Nothing. Just that slow breathing, closer now, like it's moved into the same air I'm breathing. By the time I reach the lift, the emergency light's flashing amber. System fault. The cage won't move. I mash the comm again, switch to surface channel, a burst of static, then a fragment of Pop's voice. Don't go alone. Rook, the heat's not heat. The line cuts. I slam my fist against the panel. Pain shoots through my knuckles, reminds me I'm still human, still here. The auxiliary ladder shaft's 50 yards north. I jog toward it, boots clanging against metal grating. Halfway there, my lamp catches something glinting in the dust. A what? Silver band, cracked face, hands frozen at 3:17. Pop's Rolex. For a moment, all I can hear is my own heartbeat. Then, under it, another rhythm, slower, heavier, echoing through the ground. The breathing again, but louder. Wet, ragged. I pocket the watch, flick the safety off my Glock. The darkness at the end of the tunnel ripples, like heat haze on asphalt. Shapes move inside it, long limbs, joints bending backward. A slick sound like meat sliding off bone. Then the smell hits. Not rot, not sulfur, but cold. A metallic cold that feels like biting on aluminum foil. My eyes water. My flashlight beam catches nothing. But the shadows shift when I move. Pop. I whisper, even though I know better. A whisper answers from behind me, inches from my ear. Don't breathe. My lungs lock up. The air thickens, syrup slow. I spin, nothing there, but my breath fogs in heat, hanging like smoke. The temperature drops 20 degrees in a blink. Ice blooms along the railings. Then something wet touches the back of my neck. Not a hand, a toe. I spin and fire. The flash lights up the tunnel for a heartbeat. In that instant, I see it. White skin like candle wax stretched over bone. Nose. A mouth opening far too wide. A vertical split from chin to sternum. Inside, black. No teeth, just folds of muscle trembling as it inhales. The bullet hits. No blood, just steam. It recoils onto the ceiling, moving spider fast, claws sparking against the steel beams. Then it stops, head tilted, listening. It exhales, and every light in the tunnel dies. Darkness swallows me whole. I run. Blind, gasping, counting every rung of the ladder shaft by touch. 50, 60. I don't remember how many before I feel fresh air, or what passes for it, hit my face. I collapse on the concrete floor near the access hatch, lungs burning. When I finally look down, my hands are shaking. The Rolex in my palm ticks once, backward. By the time I clawed my way out of the ladder shaft, dawn was bleeding over the ridge, pale orange seeping through refinery smoke. The whole valley looked like it was breathing, slow clouds rising from the vents that ringed the pit. I lay there for a while, coughing black dust and trying to convince myself it was just carbon in my lungs, not fear. The comm unit was dead. My flashlight was dead. Only the Rolex ticked, one click every 3 seconds, backward, marking time in reverse. When I finally staggered toward the surface control shack, the door was wide open. Papers everywhere, coffee cup knocked over, monitors frozen on static. Pop's hard hat sat on the chair, the strap torn like someone yanked it off his head. No Pop, no guards, no sound except the low rhythmic hum under the floor, that breathing, slower now, like the pit had gone back to sleep. I tried the landline. Nothing. Cell service? Just the spinning circle of no signal. That's when I realized how quiet the world was. No trucks. No backup crews. Even the wind had stopped. For a second, I thought maybe the explosion I'd heard down there hadn't been in my head. Maybe everyone else was dead. Then the phone rang. I nearly jumped out of my skin. The rotary dial phone on the wall, an old red emergency line, supposed to connect directly to HQ in Houston, started ringing in that shrill 1980s tone. I picked it up. Static hissed through the line, like someone breathing too close to the receiver. "Pop," I said. "Nothing." Then faintly, a voice, female, distorted, like it was coming through water. "Mr. Moreau, this is Control. You are to remain at post. Do not attempt evacuation. Quarantine in effect." "Who is this? Where's Delgado?" "Containment breach below Section 7B. Stay calm. We are dispatching a recovery team." The line cut. I held the receiver to my ear long after it went dead. The silence afterward felt thicker than before, like something was listening through the wires. I found a company SUV parked outside the shack, keys still in the ignition. The radio scanner was buzzing on the emergency channel, voice fragments breaking through. "Thermal spike spreading, a contact with core compromised. Repeat, the core is static. Visual confirmed. Non-human form. Request static. Shutdown impossible. Secondary breach imminent." Then silence again. That was enough for me. I wasn't sticking around to play hero for a company that paid me in meal vouchers. I started the engine. The headlights cut through a wall of fog that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. Thick, oily mist rolling up from the pit. Within seconds, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Frost crept across the windshield in spiderweb patterns. Something moved inside that fog. Oh, wrong. Walking like gravity meant nothing. Sarge barked, sharp and real, from somewhere far off. I slammed the door open, shouting his name. The fog swallowed my voice whole. When I found Sarge, he was at the ridge fence, hackles raised, teeth bare at the black mouth of the shaft below. The fog licked at the wire like smoke, and beneath it, faint tremors rolled through the ground, rhythmic, almost like footsteps underground. He whimpered once, then pressed against my leg. That dog had been through gunfire, firestorms, and chemo, but I never felt him shake before. A deep vibration hit, enough to rattle the fence posts. Then a dull boom from below. Dust erupted out of the vent pipes, raining down like ash. The ground split open 20 yards ahead, revealing a fissure wide enough to swallow a truck. From inside it, a light pulsed, reddish-orange, like magma breathing, and inside that glow a movement. Long shadows, twisting, dozens of them. "Jesus," I whispered. "There's more." I dragged Sarge into the SUV and floored it toward town. The engine screamed as the tires fishtailed through gravel. Behind me, the fog rolled uphill fast, unnatural fast, like it was chasing us. The mirrors caught flashes of something crawling on all fours, skin reflecting the headlights like wet porcelain. By the time I hit Route 14, the fog stopped at the fence line. Just stopped, like it couldn't cross. The radio lit up again, loud enough to make me flinch. "Rook, do not leave perimeter. Repeat, do not." It was Pop's voice. "Pop." I grabbed the mic. "Where the hell are you?" "They're using the heat. It's not energy. It's feeding. Listen to me, son." The transmission warped, like the words were being chewed mid-sentence. "The core is alive." They drilled into. Then the radio screamed. Not static, an actual scream, long and human, looping like a tape jammed in reverse. The sound burrowed straight into my spine. Sarge howled, pawing at the window until I killed the power. The noise cut off. The air smelled like burnt copper. I didn't sleep that night. By sunrise, the town of Blackridge was crawling with unmarked trucks, black panels, no logos, tinted windshields. Men in hazmat suits moved like ants, setting up perimeter tents and radiation monitors. A chopper circled overhead, no ID number. They called it a geothermal malfunction. They told the townspeople it was just steam pressure venting. They told me to sign a non-disclosure, gave me a check with too many zeros, and told me to go home. I should have taken it, should have left. But the thing is, Pop was still down there. And when I checked my locker that afternoon, the Rolex was gone. In its place, a new watch, same model, same engraving. To Pop, for every hour you gave. ED. Only this one was ticking normally, until I noticed the reflection on the watch glass wasn't mine. The reflection showed a tunnel, dark, glistening, with someone else's hand holding the watch. A hand pale as marble, fingers too long. I dropped it. The second it hit the floor, it stopped ticking. I told myself I was hallucinating from exhaustion. But then I looked up at the vent grate above my bed and saw condensation forming from the inside out, as if something was breathing behind it. That's when I packed my gear. If I was losing my mind, I was going to lose it on my own terms. The next night, I broke into Citron's data trailer. The keycard Pop gave me years ago still worked. Nobody expected a maintenance grunt to hack their network. The monitors were all running diagnostics on a file labeled Core Drill Phase B. I opened one. Blueprints, not for geothermal turbine, for containment pods. Each labeled with a date and a name. Red Widow 3, 1987. Devil's Lung, 1999. Blackridge Phase B, 2025. All of them had the same notation at the bottom. Biothermal substrate confirmed. Keep feeding intervals under 72 hours. Feeding intervals. Something inside that pit needed to be fed. The screen flickered. Words began typing themselves across the command line, one letter at a time. Hello, Rook. We never stop breathing. Come feed us. Every monitor in the room lit up with live tunnel footage, camera feed shaking, static lines everywhere. For a split second, I saw Pop standing in front of one camera, covered in ash, eyes white like marble. He raised his hand. The Rolex on his wrist spun backwards so fast the face blurred. Then every screen went black. The floor trembled, low rolling, and a hum rose through the walls. Not mechanical, organic. Like the whole facility was inhaling. The lights popped. I grabbed a flashlight, bolted out the back, and ran straight for the service road. The fog was back, thicker than ever, crawling over the fence like fingers. As I hit the crest of the ridge, I heard a voice behind me come, almost kind. You should have stayed above, Rook. I turned. A man in a Citron suit stood there, tall, immaculate, skin too smooth, eyes glossy like wet glass. His ID tag read Dr. Haynes, Core Operations. But his neck moved. The skin pulsed with every word, like something was breathing inside him. What the hell is this place? I shouted. He smiled too wide. Energy, Mr. Moreau. Just in a purer form. Then the ground cracked open beneath his feet, swallowing him whole. The shockwave threw me onto the asphalt. Heat rolled over me like an oven door opening. When I looked back, a column of red steam was rising straight out of Shaft 7B, splitting the clouds. And inside that steam, just visible for heartbeat, was a shape the size of a cathedral, limbs folded, mouth open, breathing. The wind carried a voice through the smoke. Pop's voice. Don't breathe until it stops. Then everything went white. When I woke, I was back in my container. The TV was on, broadcasting a press conference. A woman in a Citron blazer smiled for the cameras. Citron Ventures has successfully stabilized the geothermal anomaly in Blackridge. We're proud to announce Phase 2, projected to reach depths of 2,000 feet. I turned off the TV. Outside, the air smelled of burnt copper again. The Rolex on my nightstand ticked backward once, then stopped. Sarge lifted his head, ears twitching, staring at the floor vent. Something behind it exhaled. I whispered, if you hear it breathing, don't. 3 weeks after the explosion, Blackridge felt like a ghost town wearing a hazmat suit. Citron's men had rolled in overnight. New fences, new warning signs, new smiles. They painted over the burn scars and called it recovery. But every time the wind shifted, the smell came back. Burnt metal, antiseptic, and something underneath, a sweetness like meat gone soft. They said it was sulfur. I knew better. Sarge stopped eating after the second week. He'd sit by the door at night, staring toward the ridge, ears flat, tail still. Sometimes he'd growl at nothing, a low rumble that came from somewhere deeper than his throat. When I turned off the lights, I could hear him pacing in the dark, whining like he heard something I couldn't. I kept the Glock on my nightstand and the Rolex under a glass jar. And it started ticking again, slow, steady, backward. Every night at 3:17 a.m., it would stop, click once, then start again. The same time Pop's watch froze down in the shaft. On the 23rd night, a knock woke me. 3 short taps. Pause. 3 more. Military code, the way Pop used to signal over the drill comms when the radios went dead. I reached for the gun before I reached for the light. The clock on the wall said 3:17. When I opened the door, nobody was there. Just a file envelope hanging from the handle, marked with a faded Citron logo and one word written in pencil. Rook. Inside were photos, grainy stills from security cams. Each one showed the tunnels below Red Widow number 3. Empty at first, then not. Something in the corners. Shapes where the light didn't quite touch. And in the final photo pop, or what was left of him, standing ankle-deep in water, eyes white, mouth open wider than it should have been. The timestamp read 2:59 a.m. 2 days ago. There was also a map hand-drawn, annotated in Pop's messy script. At the bottom, the core's awake. Bring fire. By dawn, I'd already packed. Block. Flashlight. Row. 3 magnesium flares, 2 smokes, 1 frag, and 1 small oxygen tank, just in case. Sarge sat by the truck, whining softly. You're staying, buddy, I told him. No arguments. He tilted his head, that one good ear twitching. I knelt and scratched behind it. If I'm not back by sunrise, eat my beef jerky stash. It's terrible anyway. He didn't wag his tail. He just stared, like he already knew. The road to the pit was closed off with concrete barriers and motion lights. I killed the engine half a mile out and went the rest of the way on foot. The fog was waiting, thicker than I remembered, clinging to the ground like smoke off dry ice. The floodlights above the fences buzzed weakly, each halo surrounded by tiny, drifting particles of ash. The gate's padlock was new, but the hinges weren't. 1 crowbar pop and I was inside. Everything looked wrong. The once flat ground now bowed inward, like the whole valley had sunk another 10 feet. Pipes jutted from the soil, twisted like melted straws. The air shimmered with heat that didn't feel warm, a dry metallic vibration that made my teeth ache. And beneath it all, faint but constant, that breathing. The sound of stone lungs under the world. I found the old service ladder, the same one I'd crawled up 3 weeks ago. The bolts were half melted, the metal blackened. When I leaned over the edge, a blast of air rose from below, hot enough to singe my eyebrows. Smelled like rust and ozone, and something else, blood. I clipped my harness, took a deep breath, and started down. 200 feet down, the light changed. My headlamp beam bent, colors warping to a dull crimson as though the air itself was tinted. The walls were no longer basalt. They looked grown, not carved, veins of black glass twisting through wet stone. Every few yards, I passed a patch of symbols carved into the wall. Circles and lines burned deep like acid. Pop's handwriting flickered through my mind. Bring fire. At 600 feet, the comm static kicked in. Faint whispers under the noise. I tried to ignore them until one of them said my name. Rook. The voice was cracked but familiar. Pop. It's still hungry. Then silence. Then a sound behind me, the faint scrape of metal on metal. When I turned, something dropped from the ceiling, hitting the ladder 2 rungs below. It wasn't Pop. For half a second, I thought it was a man in a suit, a worker maybe, until it lifted its head. Skin stretched too thin, eyes like polished marble. The mouth opened sideways, jaw splitting with a wet snap. I drew and fired point blank. The muzzle flash lit the shaft like lightning. The thing recoiled, fell backward into the darkness, but it laughed as it went, a rattling, bubbling noise that didn't sound human. The bullet didn't bleed it. It just slowed it down. By the time I hit bottom, my ammo count was down to 10. The tunnel looked different now, wider, smoother. My boots splashed through thin water that shimmered red under the light. Every step echoed too long. The heat ahead pulsed like a heartbeat, hot, cold, hot again. And then the whispering returned, layered this time. Dozens of voices blending into one low chant. Feed the core, feed the core, feed the core. I followed the sound. The tunnel opened into a cavern easily the size of a football field. In the center stood a drilling platform, or what was left of it. Twisted girders leaned over a massive hole in the earth, wide enough to swallow a building. The edges glowed faint orange, molten rock churning below. And hanging above that pit, suspended by cables like veins, what a shape. It looked alive, huge, pallid, humanoid in outline but fused with machinery, tubes pumping viscous black fluid into its chest. Where the head should have been was a cluster of glass domes, each one holding a face pressed against the inside. Some of them I recognized. Workers, guards, their mouths moved in unison, whispering, "Welcome back, Rook." I raised the Glock. "Papa, if you can hear me, We hear you, they said together. We never stopped. The cables flexed. The whole thing inhaled, a sound like wind through a tunnel, dragging dust and loose bolts toward it. I dropped to one knee, braced myself against the wall. Then I saw it. A console still running near the edge, lights flickering red. One label stood out through the grime. Methane flush, manual override. The same safety system Pop showed me months ago. He told me once, half drunk at the bar, if the heat ever climbs faster than it should, don't fight it. Light it up. Bring fire. I sprinted for the console. The ground shook, cables whipping, faces screaming. I slammed my palm on the lever. It didn't budge, Jim. I yanked harder. Metal groaned. A shriek echoed above me. The creature uncoiling, dragging itself off the hooks. Steam blasted out of the pit as it lunged, arms unfolding like cranes. The lever gave way. A hiss ripped through the cavern as methane lines ruptured open, then spewing coal vapor. I pulled a flare, thumbed the striker. Pop, I whispered, this one's for you. The voices screamed. I lit the flare and threw it. The explosion hit like a god heartbeat. Flame roared through the shaft, wide and endless. The shockwave lifted me off my feet, threw me into the wall. I remember heat, pain, the smell of burning cloth. Then weightlessness. Then nothing. When I woke, there was no light. Only the soft drip of water and the echo of breathing, not mine. Something moved nearby. A shuffle, a groan. A flashlight clicked on, cutting through the smoke. Pop stood there, or maybe what was left of him. Half his face was gone, replaced with veins of glowing orange light. But his eyes, those were still his. You did good, son, he rasped. But it's not dead. It just remembers now. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the Rolex. It was cracked, melted, still ticking backward. Tell them up there, he said, voice fading. It's awake. Then he dropped the watch into my hand and crumbled, turning to ash that blew away on the heat. I stumbled toward the ladder, lungs burning. The shaft above was half collapsed, rungs twisted. Somewhere above, faint daylight flickered. I climbed each step heavier until my arms gave out. Then the air shifted. The breathing stopped. For the first time in weeks, the earth was silent. I looked down at the Rolex in my hand. It wasn't ticking anymore. But the second hand twitched once, pointing toward the surface, toward home. When I finally saw daylight again, it didn't look real. Just a thin gray slice between slabs of stone, like the world had been sealed shut and somebody forgot to lock it right. I crawled through the gap, dragging my half-melted gear bag behind me. Every breath tasted of soot and battery acid. Outside, the ridge was gone. The whole valley had caved inward, a black scar lined with smoking vents. No birds, no sound, just a low tremor underfoot, a pulse that matched my own heartbeat. I remember thinking, it's still alive down there. The siren started minutes later. Convoy engines, rotor wash. A wall of dust rose as unmarked helicopters descended over what used to be the Red Widow site. I stumbled toward the road, waving my flashlight like a distress beacon. They saw me. Hands grabbed me first, then plastic restraint, then the hood. Someone shouted survivor and containment breach confirmed. They shoved me into the back of a truck that smelled like bleach and diesel. Inside the hood, I heard them whispering. Is it in him? Check the respiration pattern. No visual growths yet. Then the prick of a needle, and the world blinked out. I woke under fluorescent light. White walls, glass window, humming ventilators. A hospital room, but wrong. No name tag. No clock. My arm was bandaged from shoulder to wrist. The skin beneath throbbed like it had its own heartbeat. A man in a gray suit stood by the door, tablet in hand. He smiled without moving his eyes. Mr. Moreau, you're lucky to be alive. Where am I? My voice came out sandpaper dry. Federal Geothermal Response Facility. That doesn't exist. Exactly, he said. For your own safety. He set the tablet down. A looping video played on the screen. Footage from the explosion, the cavern imploding, fire blooming outward like a living thing. Then static. Then my face, frozen mid-scream. You triggered the failsafe, he said. You save lives. But you also release something we don't fully understand. I laugh because it was that or a break. You mean the core, His smile faded. We prefer the term biothermal anomaly. He leaned closer. I could smell antiseptic and steel. Tell me, Mr. Moreau, did it speak to you? I didn't answer. The hum in the vents was growing louder. He noticed my glance. Don't worry, that's just the air filtration, except it wasn't. I could hear it under the fan noise, that slow inhale-exhale rhythm I'd heard in the tunnels. It was breathing through the ducts. They kept me 3 days. Every night, I heard footsteps in the hall, too heavy for nurses. Every morning, my 4-bag changed color slightly, pale yellow to faint orange. When I asked what it was, they said, vitamin infusion. On the 4th night, the lights flickered. The air went still. Then I heard someone down the corridor screaming, short and wet. The door lock clicked from the outside. That was my cue. I tore out the 4, jammed the saline stand into the emergency glass. The window spider cracked. Another hit and it shattered outward. I climbed through, landing in a maintenance bay reeking of ammonia. Alarms blared. Red lights strobed. Through the noise, a voice came over the intercom. Section C containment compromised. All personnel evacuate. Repeat, containment. The rest drowned in static. I followed the evacuation signs, blue arrows pointing toward a loading dock. Halfway there, I passed an observation room. Through the glass I saw tanks, each filled with thick green fluid. Floating inside were human shapes, or what used to be. Their skin shimmered like wet stone. Tubes fed into their mouths. Each tank was labeled with a code. The last one read, Sample number 09 Delgado P. His eyes were open. When I moved closer, they followed me. He lifted one hand, slowly, weakly, pressing it to the glass. I did the same. For a second, everything went quiet, even the alarms. Then he mouthed the words. It's in the air. The fluid inside his tank started to boil. His body convulsed, skin splitting along the veins. A shriek filled the corridor as the glass exploded outward, showering me in steam and blood. When the smoke cleared, he was gone. Just the sound of breathing echoing through the pipes. I ran, past empty labs, overturned carts, doors welded shut from the inside. The deeper I went, the hotter the air became. Condensation dripped from the ceiling in slow, sticky threads. My bandaged arm pulsed harder. I peeled the gauze away. Underneath, faint orange cracks glowed beneath the skin, crawling upward like veins of light. The same glow I'd seen in Pop's face. Something inside me was moving. At the exit gate, a single guard remained, face mask, rifle, trembling hands. Back inside, he yelled. Listen to me, I said, stepping closer. You have to shut this place down. It's not geothermal, it's alive. He shook his head. Orders say no one leaves. Then shoot me, I said, because if I stay, we both die. The lights above us flickered. The vent screamed. A hot gust slammed through the corridor, blowing his mask off. His skin blistered instantly, eyes going white. He dropped the rifle and started laughing as his jaw unhinged. I fired once. He stopped. The bullet hole didn't bleed, it hissed. Steam poured from it like breath. I didn't wait to see what came next. Outside, the night was burning. Columns of red fog climbed from the ground, coiling around the floodlights. Sirens wailed from the valley below. Every vent along the ridge was spewing the same luminescent vapor I'd seen underground. The core wasn't contained anymore. It had found a new way out through the air system, through the geothermal network, and maybe through me. I made it back to town before dawn. Blackridge was awake but silent. Porch lights on, doors open, no people. A thin layer of mist hugged the streets, blowing faintly in the dark. I parked outside my container and just sat there, breathing into my hands. Each exhale came out visible, like steam in freezing air. But it wasn't cold. Sarge barked inside. Relief hit like morphine. When I opened the door, he bolted to me, tail wagging. Then he froze. His nose twitched once, twice. He growled, deep, warning me. Easy, boy, I whispered. But he backed away, ears flat, eyes locked on my arm. The glow under the skin pulsed again, bright enough to light the room. He whimpered once, then ran under the bed. That's when I noticed the sound. The vent above my head. Breathing. I grabbed duct tape, sealed every vent, every crack, turned off the lights, sat in the corner with a Glock between my knees, shaking. The glow under my skin faded, then flared, then faded again, like it was sinking to something outside. At 3:17 a.m., the Rolex on the table started ticking backward. The floor vibrated. The fog outside thickened, pressing against the windows like a living thing. From somewhere in the distance, deep under the town, came a long, slow inhale. Then a voice in my head. Pop's voice. It remembers you, son. It needs air. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't breathe. The room pressure dropped. The windows bowed inward. My vision tunneled. For a moment, I swear I saw through the floor, down past the pipes, into the black beneath the town. Something vast moved there, coiled through the geothermal shafts like veins through a body. And every time I inhaled, it inhaled with me. When I came to, morning light was filtering through the curtains. The vents were quiet. The Rolex was still. Sarge was gone. Only muddy paw prints remained, leading to the front door, then stopping. Not outside, up the wall, as if he'd climbed or been lifted. I stepped outside, squinting against the glare. The valley beyond shimmered with heat haze, even though the air was freezing. A news van was parked at the edge of town, camera crew filming the rising smoke. The reporter's voice drifted through the speaker. Citron Ventures assures residents there is no ongoing threat. Phase 2 drilling will resume next month. Behind her, the fog pulsed once, timed perfectly with my heartbeat. I turned the camera off at the switchbox and walked away. That night, I drove north, past the state line, past the checkpoints. I didn't stop until the fuel light came on. At a rest area in the middle of nowhere, I checked the mirror. For a moment, my reflection didn't move. It just stared back, breathing slow and deep. Then it smiled, Pop smiled, and mouthed the words I already knew. If you hear it breathing, don't. It's been 42 days since Blackridge stopped appearing on weather maps. The satellite images show clouds, sometimes a faint shimmer, but the town itself gone. Like somebody painted over it with smoke. I'm 2 states north now, living out of a motel that smells like mold and truck stop coffee. The mirror's cracked, the wallpaper peels, and the bathroom vent wheezes when the wind changes direction. I keep it taped shut anyway. Every night at 3:17 a.m., I wake gasping. The sound is always the same, a slow inhale that doesn't belong to me, followed by the faint click of the Rolex ticking backward on the nightstand. It's been doing that since the day I left. I tell myself it's stress. Then the lights flicker, and I remember stress doesn't breathe. I've been tracking news reports. Small tremors across the Rust Belt, localized geothermal fluctuations, pipe ruptures in abandoned coal tunnels. Different words, same smell, burnt copper and ozone. The pattern forms a line on the map, a vein moving north. Citron Ventures rebranded last week. Now they call themselves Apex Thermal Solutions, with the same Houston address and the same smiling spokeswoman reading from the same teleprompter. Phase 2 drilling is a milestone in clean energy expansion. Her eyes blink out of sync on 2 different broadcasts. I replayed it frame by frame. In one shot, her pupils dilate. In the next, they don't come back. On day 43, the motel clerk slipped a package under my door. No return address. Just my name, Rook, scrawled in graphite. Inside, a flash drive, an old photo, and a note that smelled faintly of diesel. It's spreading through the vents. You have to burn the air itself. PD. Pop Delgado. The photo was from 1986. A crew of miners standing in front of the original Red Widow No. 3. Pop's younger face grinning in the middle. Behind them, faint in the film grain, was a silhouette in the mine mouth, tall, thin, head tilted sideways. I plugged in the drive. The screen filled with schematics, thermal grids, drilling layouts, pipelines marked in red. Each red line connected to a node labeled Core Feed Station, not just Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, 13 sites in total. Each note carried the same warning tag. O2 transfer threshold exceeded Stage 2 assimilation. Stage 2, meaning there was a Stage 3. Then a video file autoplayed, grainy body cam footage from an Apex tunnel crew. The men wore hazmat suits. The camera light shook as they walked through vapor thick as soup. Pressure's rising again, one voice said. Smells like iron down here. Don't breathe, too. The feed warped. A shadow passed across the lens, tall enough to scrape the ceiling. The breathing sound filled the speakers, slow, deep, familiar. Then the picture went black. When it came back, the men were gone. Only the camera remained, half melted on the floor. I spent the next 2 hours building a timeline, cross-referencing public grid outages. Every new maintenance failure aligned perfectly with one of those feed stations. The core wasn't dormant. It was migrating through the geothermal network like blood through arteries. And the next node on the path was only 50 miles away, an Apex test site outside a town called Coldwater Falls. My arms started glowing again when I read the name. Faint orange under the skin, pulsing in rhythm with the map dots. I wrapped it in duct tape and kept moving. Coldwater Falls used to be a tourist town. Cabins, waterfalls, pumpkin festivals. Now it's half empty. Apex bought the hydro dam last year, promising green steam generation. The locals just call it the hiss. The air tastes metallic the moment you cross the bridge. I parked by an abandoned diner, checked my gear, 2 flares, Glock, knife, and a jerry can of gasoline. No plan, just the certainty that if I waited, the line would reach me anyway. Down by the river, the vent towers rose like organ pipes, humming under the fog. Each one leaked a thin ribbon of steam that curled toward the sky, forming clouds that didn't move. The gate was unlocked. They weren't expecting visitors. Or maybe they didn't need to. Once you were inside, the air itself was the fence. The tunnels beneath Coldwater were cleaner than Blackridge ever was. Fresh concrete, LED strips, sterile smell. But beneath the hum of machinery was another rhythm, slower, alive. I followed it to a central chamber. In the middle stood a new reactor core, smaller than Red Widow's, surrounded by coolant tanks. On the far wall, a figure in an Apex suit typed at a terminal. I leveled the Glock. Step away from the console. He froze, then turned. Dr. Haynes, the same man who'd smiled at me in the facility. Only now his face looked waxed over, skin translucent, veins glowing faintly orange. Mr. Moreau, he said, calm as a Sunday preacher. You came all this way to witness evolution. Call it what it is, I said. Infection. He smiled wider. We're not infected. We're incorporated. Do you really think humanity was meant to keep its breath separate from the Earth's? We only borrowed it. Now it's taking it back. The lights dimmed. The coolant tanks began to tremble. Through the glass, I saw faces pressing against the inside, workers, maybe mouths moving, exhaling bubbles of light. Once this site synchronizes, Haynes said, the entire network will breathe as one organism. No more waste, no more death, just circulation. Then why do you still need lungs? I asked. He laughed, a wet gurgling sound, and exhaled a cloud of red mist that hit the floor sizzling. The vents screamed open. I shot the console. Sparks erupted, alarms shrieked. Steam burst from the walls, the temperature rising fast. Haynes lunged, faster than human, but I grabbed a flare, struck it, and shoved it against his chest. He didn't burn. He absorbed the flame, skin pulsing bright like molten glass. You can't kill breath, he hissed. You can only join it. The flare melted in my hand. I kicked him backward into a coolant tank. The glass shattered. Liquid and light exploded outward, swallowing him whole. The room filled with that sound again, the colossal inhale of something miles wide. I ran. Every vent along the tunnel walls burst open, blasting air hot enough to peel paint. Shapes moved inside the vapor, pale hands clawing outward but never quite forming bodies. I could feel the core pulsing through the structure, heartbeats syncing with the building's lights. The exit ladder appeared ahead, lit by strobing red. I climbed, lungs burning. The roar followed me upward, louder, closer. At the top hatch, daylight seared through. I pushed it open and fell onto the gravel. The dam below was glowing from within, veins of orange light racing through the concrete. Steam rolled across the water, carrying a sound like 1,000 people whispering in unison. Feed the core, feed the core. Then the entire valley exhaled. A shockwave of hot air blasted through the trees, flattening everything for miles. I covered my face, teeth rattling, as the mist spread outward in a perfect circle, rising, thinning, vanishing into the clouds. When the silence returned, the dam was gone. The river boiled quietly, reflecting a blood-red sky. and the Rolex on my wrist started ticking forward again. That night, I parked on an overlook and watched the horizon burn. The orange glow pulsed beneath the clouds like a heartbeat. On the radio, a cheerful voice from Apex Thermal Solutions announced new job openings across 6 states. "Join the clean air revolution," she said. Static swallowed her words. Then Pop's voice came through instead, faint, deliberate. "It's not done breathing, son. It just found bigger lungs." The transmission died. I looked at my arm. The glow had faded to black lines, branching like roots beneath the skin. They moved when I inhaled. Maybe it's already inside me. Maybe I'm just the next vent. Either way, tomorrow I'm heading west. There's one last site marked on the map, Apex Phase 3, a geothermal plant on the Pacific Rim where the ground never stops trembling. If I can get there before it does, maybe I can end this. Or maybe I'll just teach it how to breathe salt air. The road west felt endless, like I was driving across the ribs of a dead giant. The map said California, but the sky looked wrong, sunlight dimmed by a gray haze that refused to move. Every few miles, I passed Apex billboards rising out of the dust, smiling families, taglines about clean breath for a new age. Their eyes were always a little too bright, their teeth too white, like someone drew them from memory instead of photographs. By the time I reached the coast, the ocean was steaming. The new facility, Apex Phase 3, Pacific Vent Station, sat on a cliff overlooking the breakers. Wind turbines stood still, frozen in place. The air was heavy with that metallic sweetness I learned to fear. They said this plant would recycle carbon through deep sea vents. I knew better. It wasn't recycling anything. It was teaching the ocean to inhale. I parked half a mile away, checked my gear, 2 magnesium charges, a half-full gas can, my pistol, and a Rolex. The second hand ticked backward again, counting me down. The access tunnel to the plant was open, no guards, just the hum of turbines echoing through the metal. I followed it until the corridor widened into a chamber where the ocean met the machine, a massive shaft descending straight into the sea. Steam rose from the water, thick and red-tinged. A figure waited at the railing. Dr. Haynes. He looked almost human this time, skin repaired, hair slicked back, a corporate badge pinned neatly to his chest. "I knew you'd come," he said, voice calm, eyes glowing faintly. "The Corps remembers its first breath. You were there when it opened its lungs. Where's Pop?" I asked. "Everywhere," he said. "In the coolant lines, in the mist, in you." I raised the pistol. "Then tell him this ends tonight." He smiled the same perfect smile I'd seen on the billboards. "You can't end breathing, Mr. Morrell. You can only change what breathes." The floor trembled. The sea below churned like something massive stirring beneath it. The turbines groaned, reversing direction. The sound of air being pulled down instead of pushed up. I ran for the main console, slammed the emergency lockout key. Nothing. The screens lit red, system integrated, external override denied. Haynes didn't move. He just watched. Every molecule you exhale goes somewhere, Rook. The Corps simply decided to listen. The vents above opened. A low rush of wind filled the chamber, pulling at my clothes, dragging my words away. I could feel it drawing the breath out of me, literally stealing the air from my lungs. I fell to my knees, gasping. The pistol clattered away. My vision blurred. Veins under my skin flared orange. "Breathe, Rook," Haynes whispered, stepping closer. "Let it take what it's owed." That's when I remembered Pop's note. Bring fire. I ripped open a charge bag and slammed the 2 magnesium canisters against the rail. Sparks flew, bright white. Haynes shielded his eyes. His skin began to blister. "Fire burns oxygen," I rasped. "Let's see how your god handles that." The first charge ignited, a flare brighter than the sun. The oxygen in the room flashed into plasma. Alarm shrieked. The turbine blade screamed as the fireball raced downward into the shaft. Haynes lunged, face melting, mouth stretching impossibly wide. "You'll suffocate the world. Then maybe it'll finally sleep," I said. I threw the second charge into the vortex and dove for the maintenance lift. The explosion wasn't sound. It was pressure. Every window shattered at once. The sea turned white, then black, then white again. A geyser of steam tore into the sky, visible for miles. The lift cable snapped. I fell with it, tumbling through smoke and heat until I hit metal hard enough to break the world. Silence. Except for one thing, the Rolex ticking forward. When I opened my eyes, I was underwater. Not drowning, floating. The light around me was red and alive, rippling like the inside of a lung. Shapes drifted past, fish, debris, fragments of machines, all moving with the same pulse. Then I saw Pop. Not a hallucination this time. He was standing on the seafloor, untouched by the current, his old uniform pristine. The light poured through him. "You brought it peace," he said. "For now. What happens when it wakes up again?" He smiled, that tired grin I remember from the tunnels. "It never sleeps, son. But sometimes it listens." He held out his hand. In it, the Rolex cracked, still ticking forward. "Time's borrowed. You keep it this time." I reached for it, and the water around us inhaled. I woke on the beach. Cold. Alive. The ocean behind me boiled quietly, waves glowing faint orange before fading to normal gray. The air smelled of salt again, not copper. On the horizon, the apex plant was gone, just twisted steel rising from the surf. I looked at the watch. It was ticking forward, steady, human. Then I noticed something carved into the back of the case, words that hadn't been there before. "Tell them not to dig." For 3 days, the world was quiet. No tremors, no fog, no voices. News anchors called the Pacific explosion an unexplained geothermal eruption. Apex stock dropped 40%. Government spokesman promised full transparency. Then the fog came back. Not from the ground this time, from the sea. Rolling in thick, slow, deliberate. Carrying that faint sweetness that never really left my tongue. I drove inland. The radio stations were static, except one. A deep male voice reciting numbers in perfect rhythm with the sound of breathing. Each exhale distorted the transmission. 3, 17, feed, core, breathe. I turned it off. Didn't help. The vents in the dashboard began to whisper the same words. By the time I reached the desert, the glow had returned under my skin. Not orange anymore, blue like flame without oxygen. It didn't hurt. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the tide I'd seen swallowing the plant. Maybe Pop was right. Maybe it wasn't about killing it. Maybe the only way to stop it was to become part of the breath without letting it own me. So I did the only thing that made sense. I parked the truck in the open dunes, set up the recorder, and started telling this story. The air around me vibrates with each word. Maybe someone will hear it. Maybe the core will. Because every time we speak, we move air. Every word is a breath. And if it's listening, I want it to remember who taught it to breathe. The sun's almost gone now. The wind's getting hotter. In the distance, something vast moves beneath the sand, tracing the same pulse I feel in my veins. Sarge's collar sits on the dashboard. It rattles once with the rhythm of breathing, then stills. The Rolex stops. I close my eyes and inhale once slow. The air tastes like rust, salt, and something ancient. The sound beneath the desert answers back, a long, deep exhale rolling toward me. Maybe it's the wind. Maybe it's the world taking one more breath before the dark. Either way, I whisper the only rule that ever mattered. If you hear it breathing, don't. Fade to black. A final, faint inhale echoes through the speakers. Tagline, in credits voiceover. They said the Earth was dead rock. They never asked what was under its lungs.